What do you believe right now that's making you feel this way? And when you analyse it, you realise how irrational you can be at times.
Every single one of our major customers and minor customers all shut their doors overnight.
It's not sales per se, but the outcome of it is because people get to know you, they get to see you.
But, what's the culture like at the business? What do we stand for, the values?
I've got to tick that box on my personal development programme I don't really want to be here.
Scaling up a business isn't easy. If it were, we wouldn't have less than 4% of businesses scaling beyond 10 employees or around £1 million turnover level, and less than 1% beyond 50 employees. But the contribution that we make as owner-managers to our economies is immense and should never be underestimated. Yet it can be a tough gig for all of us at times, and only other business owners truly understand the challenges that we face. And through ScaleUp Radio, we aim to help make things a little easier. We interview guests who have been where you are now and may have faced some of the challenges that you are facing. And they offer their thoughts and advice on what has worked for them, as well as what didn't. And we've also combined many of the lessons from these interviews and also through working with hundreds of owner managers over the last 10 years or so into a practical scale-up handbook that we've called the Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System, or ESUS. And it's for owner managers like you and me as we navigate our own scale-up journey. And you can order a copy through your favourite online book retailer or by going to all the W's, esusgroup.co.uk, www.esusgroup.co.uk.
Hello, I'm Granger Forson. www.bizsmart-gloucestershire.co.uk or find me on LinkedIn. This time on ScaleUp Radio, I speak with Marksteen Adamson, the founding partner, Chief Creative Officer and Director of Strategy for Asha Co. Asha Co is a branding business based in Cheltenham. They're also just celebrating 20 years in business and have weathered all the recessions thrown at them by sticking to the core values that set up the business. Asha Co focuses on helping corporations and even countries understand their truths through core identity. From there, they develop an agreed understanding of the challenges to be overcome and a key set of actions to take. As always, we cover a lot of ground, including understanding what your business is not about is as important as what it is about. Branding is not just a logo you create. It's about crafting your future reputation. And defining your business purpose and creating your manifesto is so important, which is more than just your mission and vision and values if you want to make a difference. What is wonderful about this conversation with Marksteen is how his approach to problem solving for his customers and the ethics that run his business has taken him to develop his social foundation to tackle big social issues he sees all around him. I know you'll get something out of this episode, so let's go over and listen to Marksteen. Hello, Marksteen Adamson, and welcome to ScaleUp Radio podcast. Please introduce yourself and your business.
Thank you for inviting me. I'm Marksteen Adamson, and I run a branding business called Asha Co. I'm I guess I'm the executive creative director, but also have a hand in managing and running the business with my business partner, Mike Horn. And we've been running that now for the last 20 years or so.
Brilliant. 20 years. Fantastic. We like businesses with lots of experience on our podcast. So
this year is in fact our 20th anniversary. We were going to do something, but we're so busy working with clients that we haven't had a chance to do something.
Brilliant. Oh, okay. Yeah. No, that's really good. So give us some understanding, what does Asha Co do? What, you talked about branding, but, give us some understanding of who you are and what you do for your clients.
So I think the most important thing is that we are consultants, and we are very focused on critical thinking that leads to the right positioning for organizations. So I would say that the word that we use most is positioning rather than branding. And I think the problem with branding is that it has so many connotations. Some are good and some are bad, mostly bad, I think. And people's understanding of what it means to create identity can get very mixed up with the visual world, logos and colors and things like that, which of course we all know isn't necessarily, well, it isn't the only thing that creates a difference. So we're very interested in behavioral change and helping organizations to find the truth, because the truth sets you free. Once we know what the truth is, we can then position the organization for what it needs to be. And things like logos and all that kind of stuff are signatures, really, that you would then apply to your truth. And sometimes that means changing things, and sometimes it means keeping what you've got, but changing the way that you behave. And the innovation and the ideas that you bring to market that make people understand who you are. So we're entirely focused around discovering who you are as an organization, because once you understand who you are, then you can create a core identity at the center that doesn't change. Whereas if you build your brand or your positioning on what you do, that often leads to issues, because what you do changes every 6 years. And then, it also makes it difficult for you to change if you need to, because you've built it around what you do. And in fact, a lot of organizations that we work with who come to us, who have grown organically, they have identities and personalities that are based on what they're doing. And that's very problematic. Yeah. So that's our focus. And we work with really big organizations globally and internationally. And we also we have rebranded countries, believe it or not. So we work at quite high levels with governments, presidents. We work with, I can't tell you actually, because then I'd have to shoot you. We're in Cheltenham. Maybe that gives you an idea. We do cyber and lots of things that we can't talk about.
Yeah.
But all of that is around problem solving. And that's what we do. So that's how we get employed.
So why would a client come to you or seek you out then, if in terms of, it's a very interesting idea of finding your truth, finding your behavior, helping them go through the behavioral understanding of their business and positioning. Yeah. I mean, that's quite a sort of, very large type of thinking. So why would they come looking for you in the first place?
I think partly because when we try and do it to ourselves, it's very, very difficult. So you can go to management consulting and they will come in and primarily cut cost. They'll come in and strip everything out and say, right, now you're making more profit. But quite often what happens with that, you're left stripped bare, and you don't necessarily, because there's a difference between building revenue and then building reputation and building your brand. So your brand is intangible. And what you're doing is that you're building value for the future. That's what brand is. And then, you can also build revenue and you can fundraise. But if you're only fundraising, whether that's through a business or a charity, and you're not brand raising, things just become quite tactical after a while. And also it becomes organizations that people don't necessarily want to work for. So, part of building a great brand or a great positioning is, first of all, understanding who you are and letting others know who you are, so that when people come and work for you, they know exactly who you are. And it's not just in the heads of the people who run the organization or the founders of the organization, because that's often a really big problem, is that organizations can't grow because all the IP is in somebody's head, usually the head of the organization, the chief. And you need to get that out so that other people can work with it and grow with it and be part of it. So organizations do get stuck quite often, whether they're big or small, and whether they're charities or international corporate pharmaceutical companies. At some point they get stuck and they need to grow, but they also need to grow their value as a business in terms of their brand, rather than just monetary value. And so that becomes really important, because in order to do that properly, it has to be authentic. So we're massively concerned concerned with finding the truth. We're not going to spin. We could be spin doctors if we wanted to, but we're not, and we don't want to do that. We'll even say no to certain clients. We've started talking to clients in some instances, and we've decided actually this is an organization that we don't want to work with because they don't want to know the truth. So we'll avoid organizations like that. I think the real value comes when an organization understands who they are and then starts looking at ideas that they can implement, things that they can do that are generous. You know, if you think about the best brands that we all love, they're the brands that will last in the future. They're the ones that are generous. Okay. So John Lewis is a generous brand. It's not just about it being posh and being expensive. It's that if you buy something from them and you take it back, they don't quibble. So you always feel loved by them and you don't feel like there's ever really an issue. And they also have a foundation and they do great stuff. So that's not just them doing stuff for the sake of it or just ticking some corporate social responsibility boxes. They're actually genuinely doing great things. So you get to love those organizations. And that's really important. So, you know, if you take the difference between Tesco's and Waitrose is massive in terms of generosity and love. You know, and if you look at banks, you choose the bank that you hate the least. That's how you choose your bank. Nobody loves their bank. So when somebody comes along like Monza and they do something special or they behave in a much more light-footed way, you kind of like them for that. And they don't charge you the interest rates that others do. And, you know, they just, and I know that will probably change in the future, which always happens with these things. But yeah, it's about finding a way to differentiate. And the other thing that happens with organizations, which is very, very common, when you work in a certain sector, you sit down in a boardroom and you create your mission, vision, and your values. And the problem with that is that it sounds exactly the same as the other guys who are in your sector, because the opposite is horrific. Because you have to be about quality. You can't say we're going to be a little bit quality. You know, you have to be about quality. You have to be about service. You have to be about people. You have to be about... So basically your mission, vision, and values sound the same. So then it comes down to how do you differentiate when everybody sounds the same? We then look at purpose and we look at, you know, manifestos, and we look at other things that will make people want to get up in the morning and come back into work. That isn't just the sort of generic mission, vision, and values. It's not enough. So you have to find those differentiators and what the real IP is in that particular organization. And if it turns out that the IP or the, if you like, the purpose is the same as somebody next door, then you need ideas on top of that, which build your brand. So what people do is they think, right, we're a financial institution. So what we're going to do is we've got an idea. We're going to put some money into helping young people in schools with numeracy because we're a bank. But any bank can do that. So that's not really that interesting. But say, for instance, you get to a point and you discover that you're not actually a bank. You're a building society. So you're a membership organization. Well, if you're a membership organization, it means that you have the opportunity to be fair, because you have to balance what you do with interest rates and everything around your membership. So you have to charge, because you need to be able to pay interest to those who are also invested, but you also don't want to charge too much, because so basically you're creating a much more fairer level playing field.
Yeah.
So if you then sit down and go, because we're about fairness, what should we do in schools? What we really should do in schools is make sure that every kid has breakfast so that they all get a good start to the day. to create a level playing field for all children in school. And so we're going to do a breakfast program. So as a financial institution, we're going to do a breakfast program. Now, that's a clever idea. And that says something to the kids growing up and their parents as well, that, you know, this particular, what we thought was a bank, which is actually a building society, it's not really a bank, is a much fairer, interesting organization. I'm going to put my savings, my kids' savings into that account. And it's authentic. It's authentic and it's genuine and it sits with their core value.
Mm.
That's the sort of work that we do.
And that's coming from, as you call it, from their purpose rather than just their mission and vision and values in terms of doing that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fascinating. And that's a really interesting approach to that. So, you know, is how do you go about sort of working with businesses to create that? Is it a long-term program? Is it a one and done? I mean, it's fascinating in terms of the level of in-depth you're doing. Yeah,
you can't do it in a couple of weeks, and you certainly can't do it in a few months either. I think we are specialized in programs, and the organizations that we work with really want to make a difference. And if you think about it, organizations will spend quite a lot of money on kit and various other things, and they will neglect building a really strong brand that intangible part they will neglect. And so if you think about a program that might last 3 to 6 months, where, you know, a good part of that is in-depth interviews with stakeholders, it's, we'll start with a diagnosis. So we'll look at every aspect of the organization, everything that they do, everything that they sell, how they treat their people, all of that. We'll look at all of that. And that will give us a series of challenges. And what's important at this point is that all the stakeholders who are important come together to look at what those challenges are. And they have to all agree that those are the challenges, because people always see challenges from different angles.
Yeah.
And you can't create a brief when everyone sees the challenges differently. So you have to agree in that meeting that these 20 points here are the challenges that we have. Once you've done that, then you've got a brief. Then you can start doing the prognosis. And the prognosis then starts to look at, okay, we've taken this motorbike apart. Let's start putting it back together again. What parts do we need? What parts do we want to throw away? What new parts do we need? And also, is there some innovation that we can put into this motorbike so that it no longer pollutes the world? You know, maybe we can put a catalytic converter into it. So there's, and I'm using the motorbike as an example, but it is about not throwing the whole thing away, taking the whole thing apart and looking at it and looking at where are the bits that aren't working? Where are the bits that we can improve, and how can we make it go faster?
Mm.
And should we use different petrol? So I like motorbikes.
Yes, I can see that. No,
but that kind of and what you do is you do that with the organization. So you're constantly working with the organization along the journey, and you have steering committees, obviously, that will then sort of start to grab hold of what the brand is, and they will start to become the ambassadors for that, and they will start implementing that in the organization. And we invite the organization to come into our organization and work with us on some of those parts, to be part of the process, so that we're genuinely working as a team. I mean, the other thing that we are very, very conscious of, and one of the reasons why I left big corporate life was because I wanted a business that was more ethical. And what I mean by that, because it's such a throwaway line, but what I actually mean by that is to stop charging clients for things that are marked up. And, if you think about, a lot of organizations will put costs and bills in where they've marked massively up with a third party. And for me, that is just unethical. It's not about being transparent. And so for us, it's very important that everything that we do is completely transparent. The clients can see exactly what we're doing, what we're charging for. And that makes clients feel safe. And we get repeat business because of it. So it means that we don't drive around in Porsches. We could make so much more money if we mark things up, but we absolutely 100% don't believe in it. So we keep things very transparent, and so we work with clients throughout the whole journey. And when it then comes to implementation, there's a whole smorgasbord of possibilities, and the clients will look at that and go, okay, well, we'll implement this and we'll implement that, and we'll create a migrational strategy where we'll, use the stuff that we've currently got until it runs out, and then we'll replace it with the new stuff. And so we can do it in a way that's environmentally friendly as well, and give them a sort of a strategy for that to help them. So with really big organizations, it can take up to 2 to 3 years sometimes, and it's us working on and off, and there's implementation periods and stuff like that. The RSPB that we did recently we did that through COVID. Funnily enough, we never met them. It was all done on Zoom because of COVID.
Yeah.
It just so happened that we started the project and then COVID hit, and then we just carried on working with them for 2 years. And that's been a huge project that's really helped them to identify exactly who they are and who they're not. Because I think a lot of it as well is to do with discovering who you're not. And if you don't know who you are, you jump around in lots of different things. Oh, we need to go and save the tigers in Africa. Actually, no, you don't. You're about this. You're not about that. That's what WWF does. So you don't need to worry about that, and just stay focused around the things that you're meant to be.
So this, 20 years in business, you've described in terms of what you do. You talked about you left corporate world because you wanted to build an ethical business in terms of approach. So what you do today, was that there at the very beginning, or is it something that you have evolved and grown over the last 20 years?
It was completely there right from the start. That's how the business was built on it. So basically, I'll give you an example. In order to start an agency, you need money. You can't just start an agency with people in it and all the software that you need and the computers and the space and everything. So I would say you need about $250,000 to start a small agency. But I didn't have that. So I remortgaged the house, and I think I took 150 out of the house. This is 20 years ago to start the business. And so it was set up. And I had some employees and I had some volunteers as well, people who just came and joined me and said, I'm just going to work with you for 3 months and you don't have to pay me. So that was very nice. And so that's how we started. But I remember going in on I think it was a Friday afternoon. I was sitting with my head in my hands and thinking, where's the business going to come from? Because I don't want to poach business from my old international agency that I was global creative director of. I thought, I'm not going to do that. So I was there thinking, how am I going to get some business? And I had a call from a guy that I'd met at a barbecue to do with, because we all had babies, and, through NCT, you end up meeting people that you'd never normally talk to. And this guy called me up and he said, hey, Marksteen, I saw you at the barbecue the other day. Do you guys do branding? And I go, oh, sorry, let me just finish. The first call that I had was a woman that called me who was an ex-client from a long time ago. And she said, I've got this big account that I want to give to you. I want to work with you on this, and you can have it. It's worth $250,000. And she said, it's Camelot. And I said, oh, wow, that sounds really great. And I went home that evening really happy, and I told my wife, and I said, yeah, I've got this account. It's great. It's $250,000. That will keep us going for 6 months to a year or whatever. And she said, oh, it's Camelot. I said, yeah, what is that? She goes, that's the gambling people. And I was like, oh, no. So I had to call her back the next day, and I just said, look, I'm really, really sorry, but part of our principles is that we're not going to do gambling, alcohol, and cigarettes, because that was one of the reasons why I left big corporate life, because they were discussing taking on Rothmans. And I was like, really? What, we're going to sell cigarettes to kids? You must be joking. So I just left. I resigned. So I called her up and she was like, oh, I understand. It's a shame, though, because of da-da-da. And I said, I'm really, really sorry. So that's when I sat with my head in my hands that afternoon. And I was like, this is awful. And then I had this call on the Saturday, this guy from the barbecue. Hey, You do branding, don't you? I go, yeah, we do that kind of stuff. And he said, well, I've got this project, and it's to set up a whole innovations department for Bupa, which was great. What's interesting is that project ended up over a year and a half being around about $250,000. So I think sticking to your principles in that particular case, it paid off. But making that call and saying no to that amount of money when I just started my business and remortgaged my house was a scary moment. But so maybe that answers your question.
Yeah.
The principles were right there from the beginning, and they have been ever since.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm.
So let's explore the journey of the last 20 years a bit in terms of the progress and the development of the business. So give us some ideas what's gone right and maybe what's gone wrong, and what did you learn from it?
So I think when back 20 years ago, I got influenced too much by people around me. They were all talking like we did in 2000, which is start a business and sell it in 3 years. That was the principle. Everyone was talking, let's start a business and then you just sell it. And so I think I was thinking, okay, we'll start a business and we'll grow the business. And I started growing it, and it went to about 12 people. And there was a point where there was a recession that happened. I can't remember which one it was. It's about 3 recessions ago. We were working with a client in Jersey, and they were like a financial institution. And we went to one of their conferences, and they had a guy speaking there, Mark, somebody who's like a finance guru. And he said, there's a crash coming in about a month's time. There'll be a new recession. And we went back on the flight, and I said to Mike, I think we just need to button down the hatches and stop this whole kind of like growing the business like crazy and just stay safe for the time being. And we did. And then the recession hit, and we didn't have to fire anyone. And we used the buffers that we had and the resources that we had to make sure we paid people's salaries. But we didn't have to fire anyone. And that's been the main driving force throughout our business, where every time we've had a recession and people around us have grown and then gone crash or fired everyone for the time being until the recession is over and then rehire them, which is what people seem to do. We just felt that was really unethical. So we haven't done that. So all of the recessions, including COVID, I mean, we had a buffer before COVID that completely went, because we paid everyone through COVID, and we didn't fire anyone or make anybody redundant. And it hurt the business massively, but we care about the people who are with us. And, people that are with us have been with us. Some of them have been with us for 20 years. So, people don't want to leave the business because we look after them. And I think we got to a point maybe about 10 years ago, where we did get somebody in who's very bright, sort of a management consultant to accelerate the business. How can we grow the business? And we started doing it, and we looked at it, and it was like, in order for it to make sense, we need to grow to about 35 people. But if we do that, I'll end up in the same position that I was in when I was working for a big corporate, where I was managing offices around the world and creative teams. You're talking 2,000 people. It's just massive. And it meant that I couldn't work on all the projects. And so we looked at it and went, if we do that, it means that we as the seniors won't be working on the actual business, on all the business. And that works for some, but for us, it was like, this work is quite crucial, and we have to be involved in the work that we do because of the level that we're working at. What a lot of big creative agencies do is that they send the seniors in, like me, to win the projects, make the clients happy, all of that. And then before you know it, you've got a junior team working on your account. And that really upsets clients a lot. because they thought that they were going to get so and so, and actually what's happened is they've moved on to something else. Well, to the new business activity.
Yeah.
So we decided not to do that. So we have stayed small. We're a small team. It only takes 6 people to change the tires on the Formula One cars that come into the pit. It's like, as long as you've got the right team and it's really efficient, things are done really well, really fast, and you get the results that you need. So I can't remember a time where we've missed the mark. So all our clients are happy. They've got what they wanted. They're happy with what they've got, and we've exceeded their expectations. And we get 80 to 90% of our work is referral work. So and I think that's a good position to be in. And we also win awards. Now, the awards are great, but they're kind of like the icing on the cake. We don't work towards awards. We work towards our clients' wishes and their desired outcomes. That's what we work towards. And then we do our best to make sure that wins an award as well. But, I've judged awards for D&AD and every single award that you can think of. And I know the tricks. I know what you need to do in order to win these awards and stuff. But the problem is that can end up compromising what the client's desired outcome is. Mm-hmm. And there's been in our industry, there's been a lot of agencies that have ended up falling out with the clients because the agency were desperate, to create packaging that was going to win awards, and the client's looking at it going, we're not going to be able to sell our bread if you keep doing this. And they've fallen out, and we're just not going to do that. So so I think
that's brilliant. I mean, very interesting in terms of you're talking about how your ethics and the values of your business are actually driving the decisions you've made in terms of how you've grown, how you manage the cash in the business, which is vital important to everything, and how you care for your people in terms of doing that. I mean, let's just talk about people for a moment in terms of how do you hire the right people that fit your organization?
We don't hire a lot because people don't leave. so we don't have a massive recruitment drive or anything like that, and of course, and we don't advertise ever for any of that because I think we would be inundated. So we have had to hire in the past, and what we hire is people who are bright. So I'm a big believer in that now, which is that. You can hire people specifically to a spec. You can say, I need a project manager, and the job role is X, Y, Z. That's definitely one way of doing it. And you can hire somebody who is a project manager, or you can hire somebody who's really bright, who went and studied something completely different, anthropology, I don't know, but got a first. And they come in and you show them the tricks of the trade, and I shouldn't say tricks, but you know what I mean. All the bits that you need to learn.
Yeah.
And they'll learn that really quickly and they'll become a great project manager, but they're bright at the same time. So I think in our business, we have bright people. I would say that everyone in our business is bright in a way. They're clever, they're bright. And for instance, I could just hire designers. I could hire a designer, for instance. But I had one guy who was studying at Durham. He's a lad, really nice lad. And he was studying computer science and philosophy. And he got a first in both of them. He's very bright, as you can imagine. And he was like, but I don't want to do any of that. I want to be a designer. Can you help me be a designer? It's like, okay. So in his last year at uni, I gave him a few briefs. I gave him some pointers. He used to come in. We used to spend time together. We talked about typography and da-da-da-da-da-da. And to be honest with you, I was thinking, I don't know if this is going to fly because it's a massive learning curve. People go to uni to study typography and design in order to become really good graphic designers. I don't know how this is going to work, but he's bright. Let's see how it goes. He is currently one of our best designers. He's a really good designer. But
but he also is very good at lots of other things as well. He's a great photographer, all of that. And then I've got two senior creative directors who are super bright and very, very talented, very, very creative. I'll give you another example. Another designer that we've got, she went to Falmouth, and she came and did some work experience with us, and we weren't recruiting. But you know how when people come in and they just get on with stuff, and there's not an issue, and when there's nothing there, they'll go and ask if there's something else that they can do. And she was so proactive, and she was a good designer. We just had to hire her because she was that good. And then we've got project managers who started off as project managers. We've got a really good project director now. She came to us. She could have gone to Mars and worked in the chocolate business. She was that good. But she came to us instead as a young account handler. And she's grown into a fantastic project manager who can map out projects, creates fantastic proposals with all the caveating that you need in order for those, because the work that we do needs to be caveated. Otherwise, it's how long is a piece of string.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic at doing that. So every single person in our business, including my PA, Kerry is just stunningly brilliant at everything that she does. And she's multitasking and doing all sorts, and nothing's ever a problem. And, you know, so everyone in the business does their thing really, really well. There's not a single person in our business who isn't brilliant at what they're doing. And that's what you need. You need a team where everyone knows exactly what their role is and what they're supposed to be doing, with opportunity to try other things if they want to, you know?
And I just want to, say for my audience, because this is done on Audible, but you and I are on Zoom at the moment. And as you talk about your people, your face is dynamic, is lit up. You're so excited about talking about people, and I can see how people don't want to leave your business, because you bring them in and give them that ability to grow and to become amazing at what they do, and which is such an important aspect in any business.
Yeah, it is important that people enjoy the work that they do. And if they get into a rut and they're doing something that's making them feel not great, we'll switch it around, You just switch it around, or give it to somebody else to do for a while, or, move things around a little bit and give people an opportunity to try different things. It's very easy in this industry to get into a rut, We used to have, in the old days, departments, which was a bad idea. So you'd have the account managers, then you'd have the creatives, then you'd have the art workers, and then you'd have the IT people, and then we don't do any of that. Everyone's in one lump together, and we don't want somebody sitting in a corner doing something manually. We share it out so that people get variety.
Brilliant.
It's important. Yeah.
So, in terms of yourself, you're running a business, you're working with your clients, and achieving what you do. How do you manage overwhelm? How do you make sure you yourself don't get overwhelmed with everything?
That's a really good question. I mean, I've got a really good business partner, Mike, and Mike is he's sort of like the linear guy. And Mike is very, very good at day-to-day looking after client services. He also does a lot of the diagnosis and the interviews and all of that. So, we can share things out. Because I've got a good team of creative directors and designers and account handlers, they do a lot of stuff. I do take on too much, because I think I take on too much, because I do the Asha stuff, but at the same time I also do a lot of exploring around social issues. So I get my teeth into a toxic issue, and I want to find a way to bring it to the fore. I want people to know that refugees are suffering. So I try and think about how I'm going to do that. And I created the Stations Project, which helped us bring in the 3,500 unaccompanied minors, or at least some of them.
and that actually overturned the bill that was blocking them. So I've also I get involved in those things, and then I get involved in them. I get my teeth into it, and I try and work out how we're going to make it work. And then I get the team at Asha involved, and then we create it together, and we create the campaigns or whatever it is that we're doing. I've done the same thing with mental health, the Peel project that we did, which has been really successful with young people, helping them to find their own true identity. And I'm also doing the Phoenix project, as you probably know. This is a huge 250,000 square feet in the center of Gloucester, which is going to be a home for disadvantaged young adults, giving them work opportunity, training, mental health services, detox facility, all sorts of fantastic things. It's going to have shops in there, brands in there. It's going to have training centers, academy, everything. And that's all happening. But that's been a long journey. That came out of COVID. I created that master plan in COVID. And the council have just recently given me a huge chunk of the city centre to build this thing. So, so that's the big project. It's a £57 million project. It's huge.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's brilliant, and I think that's the problem solver in you, isn't it? You've talked about helping your clients solve problems. You also look for those big problems that need to be solved.
Well, actually, interesting that you raised that, because what happened was with a lot of really big corporate clients that I've worked with, and I won't mention any names, but some of these really big corporates say that they want to make a difference, a societal difference, or social difference. And so we end up having ideas for them, and, we create all this stuff. And in many cases, it's ended up staying in the PowerPoint. It's never gone anywhere because they just haven't done it. And that used to start really frustrating me. And I was thinking, this feels really, it's ripping my soul out. And I need to find a way for some of these things to happen. So on the side with our foundation, we started then, creating these social projects around toxic issues that would make a difference in the world. And they have made a difference. In fact, probably the award that I'm most proud of is the Change Maker of the Year award that we got from Drum. That's the award that I'm the most proud of. And that was based on the social projects that we've done. So that was one of the reasons for doing it. I think with Phoenix, it's really simple. I sat down in lockdown and I was thinking about all the charities that are all specialized. They're specialized in everything that they do. And that's great for them. But if you're a service user, if you're a young girl, you're 16, you got pregnant and you're having a baby, your boyfriend has left, your parents are on drugs, and you've got no training, you're screwed, basically. Literally. And it's just an awful situation for that girl to be in. How is she going to access all the services that she needs? She hasn't got a parent who can take her there by car. She's got a baby that's screaming. It's impossible. And what I wanted to do was create a place where she could walk through the arches of Phoenix Village, and she could take her baby. She could go in and have an assessment with the Nelson Trust. Then she could take her baby to the nursery upstairs. She could go over to WDP if she's got an addiction and have a detox. She can get accommodation in there for her and her baby, which is clean and good quality. And she can also then go into the academy and start training. She can learn IT in there. She can work in the bakery, or she can work in the hospitality, which is part of the members club thing that we're creating as well. So she will have all the opportunity and everything that she needs, including housing for the future and goal banding and social services, will all be in that one place. She doesn't need to go anywhere. She can just stay there. That's what we want to create, because it doesn't exist. It hasn't existed. And it's because the government, maybe it's not their fault, because, they're only in for 5 years. And so they're only going to do stuff that serves that 5 years. But that's the biggest problem in the UK is that you will get money from government if you're going to do intervention. So if you take people off the street and put them into housing, they'll give you loads of money for that.
Yeah.
But if I go to the government and say, I'm going to help avoid people getting into that situation in the first place, there's no money for that. You won't get any funding for that. And Phoenix Village is entirely preventative. It's a preventative
idea and concept.
Yeah.
And so we're building it in a different way. Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, Marksteen, that's awesome. I'm really impressed with that in terms of, how you've taken an idea like that in terms of trying to fix and grown that into a really exciting project, and I wish you well in everything you're doing on that. So let's just in the next 5 years, okay, so if we were to meet in 5 years time and we're looking back over the last 5 years, what's happened in both your business and personally for you that may say those 5 years are really successful?
I think it's important for the business to carry on. There's no need to sell the business. We need to grow everyone in the business, into those positions where the business can carry on in the future and leave and carry on the legacy, because we've got a fantastic portfolio. We've got a great legacy, and selling the business doesn't make sense to me. And I think I'd rather that it becomes employee owned. I'll stay in the business for as long as I can, for as long as I'm needed. And one of the ideas is to put the business into Phoenix Village anyway. So the Phoenix Village will have lots of businesses in there, recruitment companies. I've got a whole list of businesses that are going to be in there. And Asha Co can be in Phoenix Village because it can also help run some of the mental health programs that we do, like the Peel Project. But we'll also be an agency that young people can come and do work experience in. So we already do a lot of work experience for young people. They come in, and we've got a lot of examples of young people who've come and worked with us and gone on to do great things. So we're just going to carry on doing that. So I think that makes sense for the business to go into that. It will still be Asha Co, but it will just sit within Phoenix as a business. Yeah. And the foundation work that we do will go into Phoenix as well.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Marksteen, thank you so much for the conversation today. I mean, it's been fascinating. We started from, talking about, finding the real sort of truth behind the business, finding their positioning that would then lead to that, creating a core identity. We've talked about then, that IP sits in too many people's heads, and we need to get that out of their heads and get it into the business, and really understanding that great difference between generosity and love that comes from businesses. Do you love them, or are they just generous in terms of everything they do? And it's not just about the mission, vision and values, but the purpose and the manifesto behind that of a business to really help them, impact their marketplace and be successful at everything they do. And your discovery process that helps them drive through that. And, we've talked about finding the right people and, the way that, no one leaves your business. You don't hire that often, and understanding the true purpose of a business to inspire and help people achieve amazing outcomes, and how you've now taken that into your foundation work and built the activity you do, and this exciting project around the Phoenix Center or the Phoenix Village that comes, and to me, it's individuals that change the world. It's not governments. And, I passionately believe in that. And I can see that completely in terms of everything you've done. So thank you so much for that. We always finish off with a quick fire round. Okay. So a few questions, sort of first few answers that come to your head. All right. So off we go. If you were to go back to your younger you, what advice would you give yourself?
I would buy a property to put my business into. 100%. The amount of rent that I've paid over the years for my business, it's ridiculous. I should have just bought a place, got a massive mortgage, bought a really big space, and just run the business in there. 100%. That's one. You asked me one. I could give you loads, but that's one of them. Yeah.
Give us one more as well then. Go on.
I would not take drugs. I spent many years taking drugs and drinking a lot, and it took me a long time to quit. And I'm a very healthy 56-year-old now. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. I sleep well, I eat healthy, But it was an experience. But it was part of that hell-raising culture of agency life. Everyone was at it, and some of them still are, unfortunately. But I've been very clean for the last 10 years, so I'm very happy about that.
Awesome, brilliant. So, which books would you recommend?
Okay, I think that there are lots of books on the market that you can buy. I think if we're talking about the industry, about branding and all of that, but I haven't read any of those. I think the most important book to read is The 5 Love Languages. It's really short. It's not very long. And I think that it helps you understand your relationships. It helps you understand your children who have different love languages. It helps you to relate to your children. It helps you to relate to clients, actually. And it also helps you to find interesting ideas that will engage with people, because, if you think about it, banks, they only deal with you with one love language, which is to give you a freebie. It's like gift giving. Here's 5% off. But I'm not that kind of person. If somebody gives me a gift, it doesn't do the same to me as words of affirmation, maybe, or, there's other things that would get me more engaged. So I think that's a very important thing. I'm surprised at how many people have not read it or engaged with it. I mean, you can do the program online as well.
Yeah, it's a great book. No, I'd agree with that.
It is a great book. Yeah, it is a great book.
So my favorite question of all. So who's had the most influence on you as a business leader?
I think John Sorrell, who was my ex-boss at Newell & Sorrell, and he sold Newell & Sorrell to Interbrand, and I was part of moving from, Newell & Sorrell into Interbrand, and that's when I became Global Creative Director. So I think John Sorrell has definitely had the most influence. He was just a great guy, and he was a loving individual, and we got on very, very well. He was. I was going to say he was almost like a father to me, but he was that guy who I think about when I think about business and how he did things. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. And finally, how can people get hold of you?
So they can get hold of me through me@marksteen.com. They can also get hold of me through Asha Co. So ashaandco.uk. And you can see my studies on marksteen.com. That's where I have all my studies and experiments that I do. The Phoenix Village Project is the phoenixvillageproject.org. So if you want to know more about that, it's 2 years out of date, that website. Is about to be updated soon, but there's 2 films on there that explain the whole program and the progress and the process of it all. Yeah. I don't know if that's helpful.
That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, Marksteen, thank you so much for your time today, and a fantastic guest on ScaleUp Radio podcast.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
I hope you enjoyed that discussion, and if you're building and scaling your own business, you might well be interested in our book, The Entrepreneurial Scale-Up System. And it's exactly what it says on the tin. It's a practical handbook around scaling a business in a structured way. And you can order a copy on all your favorite online retailers, including an audio version, or you can find it and other supporting resources on our website, www.esusgroup.co.uk. That's esusgroup.co.uk, which is esusgroup.co.uk.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.